Korua puzzle.
The puzzle.
This
it's not an enigma.
First off,
you'll figure it out pretty quick.
There's not much to figure out with this puzzle.
Nope. What it refers to is that like every shape is kind of unique.
Reminds me of the puzzles my 4-year-old daughter does.
Every board is different and every person is different, and like finding the right board for you is part of the process, and it says it in small print right there. Something along those lines. Like when you find your board, you're like, ah!
You've solved the puzzle.
Yeah.
And this puzzle is amazing. I was really impressed with this. You know, I don't know how it's gonna, overall stack up against our favorites and make the favorites list, but it's right up there, especially comparing it to all the surfy shapes that we tried. For example, like we took it out with the Optimistic. They both had their own very unique personalities. The Optimistic had more grip. The Optimistic had a slightly deeper side cut, was a much smaller board, 51 Optimistic versus a 61.
Yeah.
Yet, this really was a fun way to take on surf shapes with a normal size. Normally you were like looking at these surf shapes, like a board like this is normally like a 152, 154. This is just a full-on 161.
It's all stubby nubby.
Yeah,
so it feels a little more masculine.
Yeah,
it's not emasculating.
Check out the table, the review on the table below to see the camber profile, and you can kind of see like a little more detail of the taper. And we'll kind of get into setback on board and all that technical shit for those of you who get into that. But this is really setback on board. It has a ton of camber going to just about here, and then it's just a mellow rocker, but all this volume in the nose. And it is really, truly a fun board to turn, especially if you like that surfy, off-the-tail style of riding.
Or if you like to do like really sharp, tight turns, I really like those whippy. You see the footage, like whipping the turn and snapping out of it into your next turn.
Really committing to that side cut and really getting that board to bend.
Yeah.
It really, the spring out of this, there's just so much camber going on that the spring out of this is just amazing. It's so much fun, and you don't feel too far back on the tail. Do you want to shut that door for him?
Yeah.
And you don't feel too far back on the tail, like you think you would, based on the like how far back you are. There's so much camber. They played around with the side cut right to where you really feel like I rarely, if any, had some washy experiences, only in harder.
Yeah.
Only going from a soft patch to a hard patch where I really committed to the edge.
Felt clean, no need to wash.
And then it would wash, that would wash on almost any board I was on,
right.
Whether it's a double ender or this or that.
Washing tons.
And it's a touch washy. You got to be a little more back on your tail. But this also liked to drive off that front foot, didn't it? Mm-hmm. You could drive off the front foot, and I just had a blast carving. I had a blast turning. I would say for me and my specs, like size 9, I'm about 180, 85 right now. 5'10", Jimbo. You have a little bigger foot for this board. But for me, I felt it was a little slow on the quick edge-to-edge turning.
Really? Yeah.
But once the edge was committed, I felt like it really had a fun radius, you know?
Yeah.
Like it really, you could really, like you were saying, whip it around. But if I was trying to do that little weave in and out of the trees.
Yeah, not like a wobble turn, but like those long turn.
In powder, I think that would change it because then this would engage more and it would give more float and the tail would be more sunk, so I think it would still turn faster. We're reviewing this in mid-May, so we were lucky to just get a couple inches of snow. But all in all, just super impressed with the Korua puzzle. It just makes me want to see more of their line. Very much like, I just tried a United Shapes Orbit, and that was super fun. It was like small and fun and dynamic, kind of like the S Optimistic. Mm. However, this just feels like a really fun, full-sized surfy ride. Like, this is the kind of size of a free ride board I would get. And I think I was overall impressed with it. And Jimbo, this isn't even your style ride. You're way more into twins. Yeah. And,
I mean, he's the one who told me to tuck my knee, and so I tried tucking my knee with it, and it was very entertaining.
Yeah, and you got some good carves. And you didn't even, you're an 11, right?
Yeah.
And were you booting out at all?
No. I would like to take it out more and see if I could boot out.
Yeah.
I
mean,
still can't.
I'd be tentative based on the boot that you own and your boot size, but I'd say even somebody with a size 10 could that might not even be reduced could lay out a pretty hard carve. This is a decently reduced. This is a very reduced size 10.
Yeah, I couldn't feel
boot.
like the snow was enough so where sometimes when you're on your edge you won't feel your boot out, but the snow will still be hitting your foot. I didn't feel.
You didn't feel any of that.
None
You
of
didn't feel like, whoa, pull it back.
Yeah, no.
So yeah, I'm stoked. Korua sent this all the way out from Europe to the West Coast, and I am stoked to spend like about a week of riding on it, and I've just and when I take it home, I stare at it. I love the simplicity. I love the surfiness of it, and I think it's a nice mix up because there's so many surfy boards that are coming out that are all super short. And, they're short with a lot of volume. This is one of those surfy boards that's a traditional size, but still has that super surfy carve personality that I think a lot of people will truly appreciate. And that's I think one of the biggest appeals to the Korua puzzle. And I just can't wait to try more Korua boards. They just seem to be incredibly well made. God, I don't want to send this back. I really don't.
But you have to.
I do.
They want it back.
I think they want it back, but I think this is going to be a favorite. And then I want it because I want to use it to compare other boards against.
You have to fork out the dough.
Yeah, I would pay straight up cash money for this, even though most of our boards are free. I like that board this much, and I think just for the fact that it appealed to Jimbo, even without being your style of board. Yeah. You've ridden so many.
Doesn't ride switch? I can't stand it.
Yeah.
I like this one, even though it couldn't ride switch.
Yeah.
I would just have to switch the bindings to Goofy and ride it Goofy for a day, and then
There
or maybe
you go.
like midday, like switch the bindings and ride it Goofy for a while, and switch them back.
And and the stance range isn't a lot. It's pretty narrow, but it was doable. I could get my 22 and a half, 22 and 3/4, and I could get and I could set it back a little more. But you really don't need to set this back much on board.
I don't think you'd need to have a wide stance.
You don't really need to play around with stance options.
You don't need to be stable in this wide stance. It's more like for a tuck knee surfy style.
Yeah, especially with all the setback on board, you really don't want to play around with it too much.
Yeah.
So there you have it, the Korua puzzle, a very long, loving review. And I think this is the last
Of the
season.
The greatest love of all.
Big thanks to Jimbo for all your help this year, buddy. Let's,
I believe the snowboards are the future.
Just gonna say a quick thing about what he thought about the Korua puzzle.
Puzzle?
Yeah.
It's not too much of a puzzle. That's what it's made for. That's what it does really well. Edge holds really well. We were on some harder, steeper stuff earlier today, and it was carving up pretty nice. Small feet people like Beastie
Loved
a
it.
little bit better just because they can do hard turns. I'm stuck with my 11.5s, and so I toe out on at least the one we demoed today. But for the most part, it was fun. It was a good carve. It's not like super poppy side to edge, but it just wants to do like just mellow, like really it's surfy. So felt good. Like the support felt good. It was coming down. Like you could turn hard, you could turn mellow, you could point it. Shock absorption's good. Like popped it around a little bit. It's a little playful that way, but for the most part, it's meant to just go downhill. So enjoyed it. The shape of it's nice. It's like the BC's gonna get a little snow surfer line going on, so it's a nice little addition for that.
Yeah, I loved it, and I bet you if you had a wide version of that.
If I had a wide version, I'd be all over the place surfing around, just like I was up at the top, and I was just kind of like okay, a little slough here, slough there. Like it's really fun that way. And then if I had the wider version, then I could do the really hard cars and just Euro carve it up if I wanted to. So it's promising. It's fun.